Welcome to Ty and Lay's Take Today, where you will be getting an exclusive look at my conversation with Dr. Michael Eric Dyson right now.
Lacy Horn is one of our board members. She's 26 years old, native of Toledo, graduated with a master's, a degree in media communications from the University of Toledo. She's a young, ambitious media expert who is working in all areas of communications. She's presently a news video editor at WDIV, Local 4 News. She is the content manager of the Stalwart magazine, creating an uprising Stalwart column which gives outstanding youth in her hometown community a platform to highlight their businesses, achievements, ambitions, and more. Also, she is the co-host and executive producer of Ty and Lay's Take Today podcast on Hot 93.97 right here in Detroit. Lacy is very passionate about using her voice, skills, and talents to be of service to her community, and she is just getting started, and she's our Dable board meeting. Welcome. You introduce our guest.
Well, this is obviously a man who needs no introduction. I mean, look at all these people in the room. He is home, Detroit native. This is Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. You guys give it up for Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. Author, activist, professor, personality, radio personality. Thank you for coming home.
Thank you for having me.
Are you happy to be home?
I'm happy to be here. My mama's here in the front row right here, Addie Mae Dyson.
Hi,
She's
Mom.
here. My cousin Bobby Joe Leonard, legend. We used to kill these streets over here, St. Cecilia on the basketball court. My brother Brian Dyson is right here. My sister Karen Lloyd. I know Miss Madison and Brother Michael, but so many people here, but it's great to be home.
I know I'm happy to have you here. I want to jump right into it now.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I want you to know I got two things open. I got my notes,
Okay.
and I also got my dictionary, because if y'all know Dr. Dyson,
man.
he going to drop some knowledge on us. He going to be like, wait a minute, I don't want him to know I don't know what that means, but I'm going to go ahead and look it up. So I want you to know I'm ready for you.
I'll have attorney Michael Fortner come up and explain what's going on.
Okay, well, to open us up, I want to play a little game with you, because I know you are a man of many words and a lot of knowledge, so we're going to shorten it up for everybody so we can get a little different taste of who Dr. Dyson is, okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to start a sentence, and you have to finish it in less than 5 words, okay?
Oh, wow.
You ready?
Yes,
Y'all
ma'am.
ready? Okay. America is
A tough place to be.
ministering starts.
With recognizing you ain't God.
That's good. Young people need.
Old people.
Okay. Politics are.
Words my mama can't hear.
Education is.
The greatest gift to us all.
Detroit is.
The bomb.
And lastly, which I think is most important, I am.
Because you are.
Wow. I love that. That was good. So we see who you've become, but I want to rewind and go back to how we got to be Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. So we want to rewind it back, and I want to know, how was it growing up in Detroit, and how has Detroit helped you become the man you are today?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I just want to say to Reverend Sheffield, an extraordinary leader, a powerful minister, a force for good. We need to celebrate him for bringing this together in the inimitable fashion that he does. And then his lovely wife is here, of course, his beautiful and brilliant daughter, President Sheffield. Let's give her some love for the extraordinary work she's doing, and the co-sponsor, attorney Michael Fortner, a tremendous legal force for good in this city. Look, Detroit is a gritty place, right? People can tell you from Detroit often because of how you carry yourself, a certain kind of swag, a certain kind of self-confidence, a certain kind of unapologetic blackness. right? Let me shout my man Bill out here too. I meant to shout my man Bill out. I try to deliberately forget him, but he's here, so I want to give him some recognition, my man. But look, there's a certain kind of swag, there's a certain kind of self-confidence, there's a certain kind of love for blackness that is hard to duplicate. You know, when I go around and, you know, hip-hop, Brooklyn, the Bronx, you know, you got Chicago, all great metropolises, all great cities that have had great black populations, Harlem and the like. But ain't nothing like Detroit for me. Because when I was coming up, you know, you had my teacher in the 5th grade, Mrs. James. Now, I don't even know her first name. You know how it is back in the day, you didn't know the teacher's first name. It was just Mrs. James, Odessa, right? I wish I could find her. I wish I could thank her for what she did for me, right? In the 5th grade, she was teaching us black history. That wasn't no thing to be done back then. I think my mother told me once that, because the only black, it was a segregated school, the only white person there was Dorothy Christensen, who was the principal. And my mother told me that some of the black parents were complaining to the white principal that the black woman was teaching these kids black history and they wasn't going to be able to do nothing with it. Well, I got a PhD from Princeton because of that black woman teaching us black history in the 5th grade. And I can still remember Russell Adams, great Negroes, past and present. I think I met him at Howard. He was a Howard University professor. But that book was significant. Jan Matt Ziegler and the Shoe Lasting Machine, Deadwood Dick, the great cowboy, Jim Beckwith, Roland Hayes, the great tenor, you know, Mary McLeod Bethune, and on and on and on. And I was reading about these great achievers, and she made us believe we could be just like them. And so I won my first blue ribbon for reciting poetry, Little Brown Baby with Sparkling Eyes, by Paul Laurence Dunbar, because of that 5th grade experience. And other great teachers, Mrs. Jefferson, my 1st grade teacher, Mrs. Morris, my 3rd grade teacher, Harvey, my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Morris, 6th grade teacher. I won a spelling bee a couple times. Then I went on to Weber Junior High with Mr. Burdette, where I won the oratorical contest a couple times. Mr. Bernuti was wearing us out on the behind. He would be arrested today for paddling us like that. Mr. Ewing. So teachers were important to me. And so I came up in an era where teachers gave a darn. Mrs. Sutton and everything at Northwestern High School. They gave a care about their students. Madame Black, en français, at Northwestern High School. They cared about their kids, and that was a big deal. And then I came up in a time when I was 9 years old when Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered, about to turn 10. And I remember my father was sitting in this chair in the living room, and they announced on television that Martin Luther King Jr. had been shot. I don't think he had immediately announced he was assassinated. And my father was like, you know, he's just like one of them grunts that like, man. And I asked my mother, which one is he? And then he came on, I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight, we as a people will get to the promised land. I had goosebumps. It's like, who is this? Never heard of this man. Went out and, you know, I had a little if you will, hi-fi. It wasn't no hi-fi. It was just a record player. You know how it is. You put your little 45s on it and so on. So I sent out and got all the speeches, the excerpts of Dr. King, and sent off for them, used my money that I had saved up from my allowance. And then I was able to listen to him, and that was deeply influential to me. And then on television, I never will forget Kenneth Cockrell. I mean, cussing out the judges, you know, calling the judge a hunky in his face at the darn court. I was like, who is this man using them big words, killing the game? I mean, as a revolutionary Marxist, radical thinker who was bringing serious insight and tremendous fervor to the black community. And then, of course, Coleman Young, who became mayor. But my pastor, the Reverend Dr. Frederick George Sampson of the Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church. Watch out now. God stands on tiptoe expectancy. I mean, that was bad, man. So, you know, I would see Sampson in the morning, Charles Gilchrist Adams in the afternoon, and on the radio listen to C.L. Franklin in the evening. You don't have me. Man, that was a lineup. Dr. Sampson in the morning, right? God saves us. And then Dr. Adams, you know, with that high-pitched, powerful voice. In the wilderness. And then CL at night. It was incredible. So to have all of that black excellence, and of course Aretha Franklin singing, and the Temptations singing, and Marvin Gaye singing, and Stevie Wonder singing, and the Supremes singing, that fertile environment was extremely important. And I mentioned my cousin Bobby Joe. He truly was a playground legend, and he would come pick me up, and we would go hoop at Weber Junior High, come over here to St. Cecilia. It was him and Ray Hall. They were the best ball players in the city. And to have him as an older brother figure and to hang out with him was extremely valuable in terms of getting me acclimated to those kinds of circles of black masculine competition and solidarity and cooperation that made a difference. So those are some of the things that made me who I am today, along with Verner's Ginger Ale.
So I know you talked about the importance of your teachers. You named a lot of the teachers that you still know from when you were in elementary school, and you are an educator yourself. Do you hope that you can have that same impact on your students?
Oh, yes, ma'am. If I could have half the impact that those teachers had on me, it would be incredible. Because, you know, there was a level of respect and fear that you had for your teachers that is nearly unduplicatable right now. And to have them invest in you, as they say now, pour into you, their gifts, their inspiration, their determination, that was extremely important. And then my mother and father, you know, were the most essential. At home, my mother's a highly intelligent woman, reads a lot, so I picked that up from her. My father was an extremely hard worker. I mean, even when they laid him off at the factory, you know, he refused simply to just go on welfare. He's going, you know, start a grass cutting and siding business with the Dyson boys and so on. We've been, you know, I was working at Frank's Nursery up on, was it Joy Road and Tireman and so on. So we had a heck of a strong work ethic, and that has stood me well for, you know, being able in my life to work hard at what I love to do and to be able to use literacy as a tool of advance and as a weapon against hate and against anti-blackness in this world.
So for myself, my parents are here. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad.
Hey, I know they're proud of you. Where they at? Where they at? Tell them stand up. Where the parents
Say
at?
hi, Mom.
Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. They're ashamed they can't
They're
stand
shy,
up? Well, there
I
they
know.
are. Oh.
That's my mom. That's
Hey,
my
Mom.
dad.
What's
They
up,
came
Mom
all the
and
way
Dad?
from Ohio to support.
Ohio. Sorry. And win. Sorry, we whipped Ohio State. Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Ha ha. Go blue. Dun, 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 dun. Hey! Put that button.
All right. We get it. Y'all national champs. Let's move on.
What's up?
Moving on. So growing up, my parents really pushed education similar to your mom. And I know with my parents, they were very clear with me that in order to, education would put you so much further, closer to success. And with now, you see a lot more people my age owning businesses, and you even hear people saying, you know, you don't need to go to school. School is too expensive. Why waste your money on school when you can still become a millionaire and not go to school? So with you being a man, education being so close to your heart, do you feel like it's going to college still important? Is it still significant? Do you still encourage people to go?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I mean, I saw that. Who was that? What was that rapper in the car talking about education is stupid? What was his name? Grease? Or I'm trying to remember. Gilly, is that his name?
Sure.
And I'm like, keep up, young people. That's what I do. I think it was Gilly. But, you know, look, I get you talking about education. You know, people, they went and got a degree and then they ain't making as much as the person. How many times that gonna happen? Right? Not having an education is a critical deficit. and downfall. It's not a guarantee that you're going to be no millionaire, but it's a guarantee you can enjoy your life because you're highly intelligent and reflective upon the issues that are critical to you, right? And education ain't just schooling. I ain't talking about, you know, whether you go to college or not. To think, to reflect, to look at the world in which you live. So I ain't trying to say that if you ain't gone to college, you ain't, that ain't my point. Because you ain't got to go to college. James Baldwin never went to college and is studied by every college in America, right? So you ain't got to go to college. That ain't what I'm saying. I'm saying be intelligent, be wide awake, be understanding of the world in which you live, be reflective of the world around you, know what's happening in politics and culture, in athletics for that matter. So, you know, but when those who jump on, those of us who have the opportunity to go on to college, and then folk put you down. Now, some people put you down because they didn't get a chance to go. Some people put you down because they think, oh, you trying to be, you know, all highfalutin. And there are some people who mess the game up because they get a little degree and they think they're better than somebody else. But I remember when I was in Tennessee the first time around when I was a student, and it was announced, I think, among the ministers, because I was a minister, you know, that in a room they were about to have this service, and they said, Michael Eric Dyson's getting a full ride, a scholarship to go to get a PhD at Princeton. And so one of the bishops was like, well, thing is, can a PhD get you into heaven, Reverend? I said, no, nigga, but I can write my own sermons. Sorry for that word. Forgot my mother was here, but anyway. I did say that, so what am I going to do? Lie to you? I mean, the thing is, I ain't got to steal nobody's stuff, bro. I'm writing my own. So the thing is that, look, to appreciate the value of education is critical for us as a people. We ain't got to dog people who don't have it, but those of us who have the ability to get it ought to use it and use it for something more than for ourselves, for our own self-aggrandizement, for our own upward mobility. Can we use it to help the nation? Look at a Martin Luther King Jr., got a PhD, became a pastor, then a social justice activist, using his education in defense of vulnerable people, right? My good friend Karen Lord, I mentioned, a former dean. Use your education to help further your people. Reverend Sheffield, Michael Fortner, you know, attorney Michael Fortner, you know, Sister Lacy. You got to use what you got to help other people, because if the only thing you're doing is helping yourself, then the purpose of education has been lost on you. The purpose of education first is to be enlightened so that the value and quality of your life is immeasurably enhanced because you understand the world in which you live. You ain't got $1 billion, you ain't got $1 million, but you have an appreciation for Du Bois and for Langston Hughes and for Nikki Giovanni and for the, quote, finer intellectual things in life, reading Frederick Douglass. There's a value in understanding the world in which you live that is priceless. On the other hand, they out here committing Harry Carey and wilding out on education. You could be the president of Harvard with a PhD, right? And you see how they gonna challenge you and take it. Then they found out that the white man beating up on her, his wife, was plagiarizing too, right? Y'all see that? Now she out here, now first it was 4 examples in her dissertation, then they came back with 15, 20 more. Now he said, the white man, the billionaire, Jewish brother, says the one who helped bring Claudine Gay down, says he's gonna go out here and challenge, because his wife has been exposed for the very same thing he exposed Claudine Gay for. Now he gonna check every person at MIT, which is where the source of that discovery was, because his wife used to be a professor there, and go from the president to every scholar to every student. Now that's some kind of vengeance, ain't it? Because the point is, you wasn't interested in justice to begin with. You were interested in trying to take a black woman down, trying to prove that she was incompetent, and in your own crib lived the plagiarizing impulse right there. So be careful about the grave you dig for somebody else. You might fall in it yourself. All right? But having said that, it's important for us to get as much learning as we can to help as many people as we can. because it's extremely valuable and important. And they've done correlations between people who are able to afford certain things, middle class existence, getting a better home and the like, with the kind of education or at least skill or trade. You ain't got to have formal education, but if you got a skill or a trade, if you can work on that line at Ford or Chrysler, if you can have ability to be a pipe fitter in a union, if you have ability to lay carpet, whatever it is, right? A trade, a skill, an intellectual capacity that is extremely important and valuable is something.
Now, we all know you've written 1,020 books that have turned to bestsellers. So when did you start writing? When did you become passionate about writing and go from writing little poems and reciting poems to now writing 1,020 best-selling books?
Well, mine is 1,000. I got about 25. You know, I'm working on number 26 now. You know, when I met Mr. Burdett in the 7th grade at Weber Junior High, and me and my best friend then was Greg White, and his brother Barry White was a prodigy, you know, went to college at 14 at Wayne State, graduated at 18, became a minister, did his first sermon at Tabernacle. I remember the word trilogy was in it. I was very impressed as a young person. So me and Greg heard over the loudspeaker at Weber that there was, you know, going to be an oratorical contest. I said, what does the word oratorical mean? I don't know. All right. So we went up to Mr. Burdett's room, and I said, well, what does oratorical mean? He says, giving a speech. I said, nah, that's all right. Okay, that's good. And me and Greg were like, nah, that's all right. He's like, no, stick around. I said, nah, I really don't want to do this. He said, no, stick around. So we ended up sticking around. You had to write a speech. You had to memorize it. It had to be over 2-3 minutes. And you had to write it and then memorize it. That was my, I guess, first exercise formally in writing. And writing those speeches. Of course, you had help from you know, the editorial capacity of Mr. Burdett, but it's something we wrote ourselves. Greg wrote his speech. He got involved. I got involved. I happened to win that level, then the next level, and for a couple years. And that opened up a lot of doors for me. I was in the Detroit Chronicle. I was in the Detroit News. Young Boys Plea Against Racism Wins Award. I mean, I was in the news in 1971 with my picture, and they were interviewing me. I was 12 years old. I won. The 15-year-old was in second place. 14-year-old was in third place. So it gave me a sense of what writing was about. Then I wrote a play. I've lost it since then, about Dr. King when I was in the 7th grade. And so I had an interest in. When I was in high school at Northwestern, we wrote a little play that we acted in and then recorded. So I started kind of writing then, and then writing essays, and then after that writing sermons and the like. So that kind of thing kind of came natural to me, and as I developed my skill set, I really wanted to write even more, because James Baldwin's Fire Next Time had been extremely influential and powerful for me. And then later on, Toni Morrison. I remember I got evicted on Christmas Day with my son's mother. I guess she was my wife, but that was passive aggressive. Passive aggressive. I'm like Simone Biles' husband. So, Negro, we didn't even know your name until you got married to Simone Biles. So I don't know what you're talking about. You ain't the catch. You the catch in the sea, and she can throw you back and get another one. But anyway, so, you know, we got evicted on Christmas Day, but I remember I had a copy of Song of Solomon in my hand. And when I met Toni Morrison, I told her that story. So literacy is extremely valuable. I told you my mother reads a whole bunch, and that was deeply influential to me. And I began to write after that. I thought I was going to be a pastor, you know, and after I got kicked out of the black church for trying to ordain 3 women as deacons, I said, well, let me rethink this, right? And that was in '83. It wasn't no fad. Everybody wasn't doing that. But I tried to ordain 3 women as deacon in Tennessee. God has a sense of humor, at Thankful Baptist Church. They were quite unthankful to me, and I was kicked out. And then I went back to school because I got kicked out of school before I got kicked out of church. And I got kicked out of school because I was protesting the fact that we didn't have but one speaker who was black a year, and they said, well, based upon your number of students here, that's all you deserve. So I protested by, boycotting going to chapel every day. Got kicked out of there, so I went back there and said, maybe I need to rethink this, and that's when I determined to become a scholar and went on to get a PhD and began writing and the like that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a journey.
Yes, ma'am.
So now we know that you absolutely love, you're a big hip-hop fan.
Mm-hmm.
Big hip-hop fan. You've
Yes,
written
ma'am.
books about rappers.
I have.
So did your love of hip-hop start at a young age as well?
That's a great point. I was a teen father, so my son was growing up as hip-hop was growing up, because he was born in 78. Hip-hop above ground is 79, though we know 73, DJ Kool Herc, Clive Campbell in the Bronx. But when it hit commercially, he was like a year old. And he lived with me for a while, then went back with his mother, then he came with me permanently. So we're growing up together. I'm growing up as a father, he's growing up as a young man, hip-hop is growing up as a genre. So, I'm from Detroit, so Motown. You know what I'm about, right? And, the stylistics, even in the 70s. Detroit had it in the 60s. We were still powerful in the 70s, but you can't fade what happened in Philadelphia at what happened with Gamble and Huff and what they were doing there. So Detroit and Philly in the 70s were amazing. So that was my music. So I was about 21 when hip-hop hits above ground. And, I took to it because I was interested in narratives, and the grittier side. Y'all remember that song, Alvin Stone, The Son of a Gangster, Better Leave Him Alone? Yeah, y'all know about that, but So all that great music out of this city had primed the pump, and appreciating some of the stuff in the 50s, 40s and 50s, from Sam Cooke in the 50s and then into the 60s, what he did, Otis Redding, Aretha Franklin in the 60s and the early 70s. That stuff was extremely important. So I began to understand the poetry and the value. My pastor, Dr. Sampson, and I would trade poetry back and forth, right? Like people do with hip-hop now. People do their favorite verses. Standing by the speaker, suddenly I had a fever. Was it me or either summer madness? Because I just can't stand around, so I get closer, and the closer I get, the better it sounds. Well, we didn't have no hip-hop when I was growing up. Life is earnest, life is real, and the grave is not as gold. To dust thou art, to dust thou returnest, was not spoken of the soul. So when I hung out with Dr. Sampson, who mentored me, who spent time with me, who poured into me, that gave me a sense of what was achievable through literacy. And that was significant in my life. So when hip-hop came along, a lot of people, it's passing, it's a fad, it ain't gonna last. And I've written a book on Marvin Gaye, I've written a book on couple books on Dr. King, one on Bill Cosby in response to his attacks on poor black people and like. So I got appreciation for older black culture, but I've written several books on hip-hop as well because I think it's extremely valuable and important. And unfortunately, a lot of black people were sleeping on a culture that the white man then took an interest in, and we got mad when they didn't represent us and got into the commercial field with white folk, but white folk was the one giving them a chance because Negroes were like, I don't want to hear that mess. So it was more complicated in terms of the affirmation of our kids' rhetorical skills. And I'm not saying some of that stuff ain't trash, but some gospel is trash. A lot of gospel music is trash. A lot of opera is trash. Most music ain't great. Some of it is great, a little of it is genius. And when you look at what's produced in hip-hop, there's a lot of trash out there, but there's some great genius out there as well. And I was drawn to the poetry, to the ability to use enjambment or elongation or iambic pentameter. You can listen to Robert Frost, whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. You will not see him stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Then you switch over to JayZ, God forgive me for my brash delivery, but I remember vividly what these streets did to me. So it was a natural affinity for poetic invention that drew me to hip-hop to begin with.
Now, you just quoted JayZ, and I know that you love him. Mm-hmm. So tell me, why do you love him so much? Because I know you speak about him a lot. You use his lyrics a lot. So What is it about him that you love so much about how he attacks
Yeah.
hip hop?
Well, look, Jay, Nas, Biggie, Tupac, Scarface. I don't know if y'all saw the Tiny Desk. Y'all saw that Tiny Desk from Scarface? See, Scarface is your favorite rapper's favorite rapper. You know what I'm saying? Like he's on that level. He's like the cognoscenti like him. If y'all are here and y'all don't know what the heck I'm talking about because you thought Scarface was Al Pacino, in the movie, say hello to my little friend. And I'm giving y'all mad, come on, man, Godfather. But that was Scarface, 1980. Godfather was 71, 72. I remember my mother and father took us to see him in the drive-in, and I went and blasted it at school, like running my mouth like we went to see Godfather. You weren't supposed to tell him that. But I saw him. Look what they did to my boy. Anyway, when I think about JayZ, sorry, I'm like an old man reminiscing about everything. When I think about JayZ, I think about the fact that he's married to Beyonce. No, I think about the
Which we saw you met her, by the way.
Oh my God, you won't break my soul. You will not break my soul. But no, JayZ is a rhetorical genius. Nas is a rhetorical genius. Lauryn Hill's a rhetorical genius. Lauryn Hill said, even after all my logic and my theory, I add a MF so you ignorant people hear me. Talib Kweli is a genius. These cats drink champagne, toast death and pain, like slaves on a ship bragging about who got the flyest chain. Nas is a genius. It's only right that I was born to use mics, and the stuff that I write is even tougher than dice. I'm taking rapping to a new plateau through rap slow. My rhyming is a vitamin hell without a capsule. Smooth criminal on beat breaks. Never put me in your box if your stuff eats tapes. So when you come to a guy like JayZ, you think about the extraordinary literary character of what he does. He understood, look, you got to get people to dance and think and party before you get them to engage your music, right? Because if they can't move their behind, it won't move their mind. So he says, I can't help the poor if I'm one of them, so I got rich and gave back. That's the win-win. He understood you had to be commercial in order to be vital as a compelling artist. A lot of artists who don't have commercial bases are highly intelligent and skilled, but they ain't selling much, and they might not be as commercially viable. And people claim they want positive music, but they don't buy it. They don't support it. They support the ratchet. They support the gully stuff. So he understood, in order for me to make music, I got to make music that's compelling to people, because his first album, he said, y'all didn't really buy it. So I had to learn a lesson. I got to make music that you were going to buy. So then you came back with, your second album, your third, then you came out, it's a hard knock life. And then you took the theme from Annie and then took it to another dimension. And then after that, you came out in 2001, right after, on the day of 9/11, with Blueprint. And I know that because my book on Tupac came out the same day. And so I appreciate his hustle, his intelligence, his literary skill, his ability to transform his artistic endeavor into an entrepreneurial activity. And I'm from Detroit. That's what black people in Detroit do. Figure out a way to capitalize on your skill and talent and produce something that will be lasting and of importance. And deeply wedded to that in Detroit is an unapologetic defense of our blackness without excuse. And so I loved all that in Jay, and loved the way in which he was able to transform his own circumstance and situation into a much more powerful situation and circumstance, take other people with him, and then what is he doing today? Becoming the first billionaire in hip-hop and making a significant contribution to the culture even more broadly than in hip-hop. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you saw Cat Williams. He broke the internet.
Whoa, Cat! Glad you ain't said nothing bad about me, bro. It was rough up in there.
On Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp, he talked about specifically people calling Kanye a genius, and I'm asking you this because you just talked about a lot of hip-hop rappers being geniuses. Right. And one of the comments he made, he said that, the Kanye's problem is our problem because we called the man a genius, right. And now you see him doing all this, saying these outlandish comments, and he's doing all these things, but we're part of the problem because we fueled that by telling him he was a genius and telling him he was the greatest and now we've created this monster. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was more understanding of Kanye than a lot of people have been, because he also, if I'm not mistaken, implied that he understood that the man has mental issues, right?
Yes, he did.
Now, just because you got mental issues don't mean you got to be a bigot, though. Let's just be real, because then that way a lot of white folk would just, who are bigots, would just say they're mentally ill. We might agree, but not because you're a bigot. But anyway, so the thing is that Kanye is a genius. I mean, what did he do? He took the Chicago sound, the Midwestern sensibility of soul music, and injected that into the sonic heart of hip-hop and transformed it. I mean, there's no question that he is a genius as a producer, as a man making beats and music, and then on top of that, adding his own lyrics, and then becoming an impresario, and becoming a design impresario, and becoming a person. I mean, bro, you were worth, what, $1.9 billion on them shoes? I mean, my son bought me, I can't even wear them, dog. I couldn't even wear them. I was like, bruh, I appreciate you, Mike, but dang, they don't look that good to me. You a genius because you could make them think that stuff was beautiful, and they bought it and wore it. You must be a genius, right? So I ain't mad at his taste and style. The man, you know, got it, you know, Balenciaga boots and all that, you know, with your ladies. But first of all, the issue of mental illness ain't nothing to be played with. It's horrible. You know, first he was diagnosed, he said, as, you know, a person who had bipolar. Then he said it was a lie, and then going back. But part of what it means to be mentally ill is not to recognize you mentally ill and saying things. But I hated to see him blow that check. 1.9 billion. You hate Jews more than you love cash? $1.9 billion, and you didn't even really, it seems, mean it, right? You're having an episode, and you're going in. But if I was a Jew, I would think you meant it, because you just kept at it, and you kept repeating what you said, and you said some foul, nefarious stuff. And I wrote a piece in the New York Times really trying to argue with Kanye, because the thing is, as the old folks say, where you did it is where you get it. You said it in public. And that, look, I've talked to Kanye in private. But Kanye, I remember when I sent him, you know, some text, he published my text and John Legend's text. Now, what about if I'd have said something like, I really be talking? Y'all know what I'm saying. Saltines. But anyway, those who have ears, let them hear. You know how I be saying to see, you know, you be up here saying stuff, and then now you gonna publish it without asking me? And I'm talking to you as my brother, and I'm trying to put you on game. Now, fortunately, I ain't said nothing crazy that time. John Legend was smart. I told him, I said, John Legend said, well, since you publishing my text to you, y'all, I have a new album out, please go buy it.
You're right.
I said, I wish I'd have thought about that. Go get my latest book. So I've talked to Kanye one-on-one. I saw Kanye when I was promoting my book, Tears We Cannot Stop, A Sermon to White America. It was in an obscure little place in L.A. I had just done this podcast or this online show, came out. This dude says, you know who this dude is? He's talking to you. He said, that's Michael Eric Dyson. It was Kanye. He wanted to talk to me. I talked to him. Talked to him 15 minutes, went in my car, about to leave. He knocked on the window. He says, what do you think about me and Donald Trump? So I talked to him another half hour. I said, why are you giving a mediocre white boy your legitimacy as a genius of culture? I said, plus he represents what you don't even understand, Ye. It is a problematic representation of the worst of the human spirit, especially of our American identity. I said, one-on-one, look, I saw Donald Trump. Donald Trump came up to me at the 30 Rockefeller Center. He was on TV, I was on TV. He got off the elevator, he saw me. You've been very tough on me, but I love you. If I had your pipes and your brains, I'd be president now. I was like, oh my God. My mama told me I won't be nasty to the boy. I was like, thank you, sir. And then he wanted to take a picture with me. I was like, look, Doc, come on. I said, let's go in the corner over here. You know, like when you with a girl you don't really want to be seen with in public, but you know, yeah. Or in your case, every man you meet. You know, so I'm in the corner. I was like, take the picture, don't tell nobody. That's it. So I know his charisma. And then my wife happened to be on the phone. He took the phone. Marcia, is he treating you right? Is he doing the right thing? The guy got charisma. I can't lie, one-on-one. But you are a fascist, dictatorial, condescending, hyperventilated, hateful person.
I got the dictionary, y'all. Don't worry.
Who has undermined the process of American democracy. So I told Kanye, I said, yeah, you got too much of a genius. And how I first met Kanye anyway, I didn't like how they were dogging him when he said George Bush does not like black people, right? Care for black people. So I told JayZ, I was texting Jay, I said, I don't like what they're doing to Ye. He said, send this to me in an email. I sent what I believe. He sent it to Ye. He connected us. That's how I first met Kanye. So I got love for Kanye, but Kanye was wrong. And you can't be exempt. And then he's going off on these tirades. Some of it is mental illness. Some of it seems to be what he believes. Now he likes Jews again because he saw Jonah Hill. But could you have liked Jonah Hill before $1.5 billion left your pocketbook? Now you got $400 million left. Now that's a lot of money for me and you. I mean, that's a lot of money, but you had nearly $2 billion and you squandered it because you thought it was a good thing to assault people through a hyper-vigilant, anti-Semitic tirade that really didn't ultimately, I think, express who you are. You're talking about Hitler, you're wearing the black KKK, so it's a complicated thing. I love Kanye, but Kanye got what he deserved at that level. I wish his mama was here. I wish his mama had not died. It doesn't mean that he wouldn't have had mental illness, but maybe she could have tried to handle him a different way, and maybe not. People said the same thing about Bill Cosby, that when his son got killed, he went off. But his son was killed by a Ukrainian immigrant, not Negroes. Why are you mad at Negroes? And then stuff came later. I ain't going to take joy in that. I wrote my book. People was like, why would you write a book against Bill Cosby with the jello and the pudding pop? Well, because he was assaulting poor Negroes. And whether it's Kanye assaulting Jews or Bill Cosby assaulting poor black people, I got to take a stand, because I'm from Detroit, for the little person, for the vulnerable person, for the person whose back is against the wall. So Kat was right, but you know, he's absolutely right. Kanye is a complicated, beautiful, wonderful, destructive, self-destructive human being, and I just wish him well. I hope he can get some of the help he needs in terms of mental health so that he can go on and be productive in his own life and career. But that interview was something for Cat Williams.
Cat, let everybody have it, okay?
Man. Man.
So I know, so January 6th just passed, and so obviously that was the anniversary of our nation's Capitol building being attacked. With Trump running again for president, do you feel like he should be held accountable for what happened at the Capitol?
Oh, my mother's here. Heck yes. Heck yes. I mean, how absurd is this? This dude in court yesterday, his lawyers argued he ought to be able to assassinate people because he's the president. Well, you have, metaphorically. Every day is January 6th to Negroes, because we see white folk of power wilding out every day, right? That ain't the first day you did it. You go to some of the most sacred territory in civic space in America and put your foot up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. And then you ram the walls. You batter the windows. You threaten even Republican congresspeople because of your vicious misdirection and your misled conception that you are the arbiters of American democracy. You got a Confederate flag, the flag of a traitor, and black folk who have died for it. You call Colin Kaepernick a traitor because he said, I'm going to kneel while the national anthem is playing, but you celebrate as a patriot people who raise the bloodstained banner of a traitor to American democracy. So look, Donald Trump is problematic, but 46% of men of color stand with him. And that means that some of them are Negroes. That means about 20%. Last time around, 19% of black men stood with Donald Trump. What in the hell is wrong with us? right? Now, I know people got a problem with Joe Biden. What's the alternative? Now, this is what I'm saying. Criticize him, definitely. Hold him to account without question. He put a black woman on the Supreme Court, a black woman in the White House, in terms of a vice president, more judges than any president in history, and more diverse than anybody. Now, he ain't no perfect white boy, but like Grace Jones said, I might not be perfect, but I'm perfect for you. The point is that he ain't perfect, but he did more than Obama did. I know y'all don't want to hear that. I know y'all don't want to hear that. But I'm from Detroit. Let the truth be what the truth is. Obama had 3 shots, 3 bites of the apple, didn't put a single black woman on the Supreme Court. The white boy puts a black woman on the Supreme Court and as his running mate and vice president of the United States of America. Now, I know it's beyond symbolic politics. We're talking about substantive rearrangement of resources. Politics is about the distribution of critical resources in a time of crisis to vulnerable populations. So we know that Joe Biden has been an arbiter of things that are good for us. Has he been perfect? Heck no. We disagree with him maybe on Israel and Hamas. We disagree with him in terms of certain economic situations. But for 19% of black men to stand with Donald Trump, right? If you think, that's like saying my girlfriend got bad breath and a bad weave, and I won't be with her. So you go with a woman who's an axe murderer. Dude, stick with the bad breath and the weave. You could get a new weave and the breath can get some breath mint, okay? Or some TikToks, you know, or something. So the point is, why is it that we justify and legitimate our aversion to Joe Biden as if we don't know that's a limit on what's available to us? My man, Charlemagne the God, I love you, but when you tell people that you can't fool with Joe Biden anymore, what is the option? Nikki Haley? Is Nikki Haley your real option? Is Ron DeSantis your option? Nikki Haley, who presided over South Carolina when she was governor, forced to take down that Confederate flag, and then 2 years later, some said I wouldn't have done it that way, playing to the right wing, even though she's of Indian heritage in terms of her mother and father being from India. And Ron DeSantis, who is banning black books. So what is the alternative, right? I want the Lakers to be in the finals between Golden State and the Pistons. You know I'm dreaming. So the thing is, your team ain't in the finals. You got to vote for who in the finals. The Super Bowl is coming up, right? It's only going to be 2 teams there. Well, it should have been, maybe it's going to be the Lions. Let's just keep hoping, because Lions killing the game right now. I ain't mad. What up? Black GM, what's up? But here's my point. If your team don't make it to the finals, the Super Bowl's still going to get played. And the consequences will still redound to you. So we got to be more sophisticated. I want to tell young black people, I know you mad that your person didn't get in or the person you got in didn't do what you wanted them to do. That's the nature of politics. And because you ain't got much experience, you think every time you win everything. You don't win everything. But if we had a different president than Donald Trump, the Supreme Court would not have 3 right-wing, reactionary, conservative figures who shifted the balance of power to the right wing. That's because we voted for a different person. And it's not just president. How about the prosecutor? How about the local DA? They determine consequences and policies that make a difference. How about that's why we got a president of the Detroit City Council like the brilliant and insightful Mary Sheffield, who makes a difference in the lives of black people in terms of the distribution of resources, in terms of the allocation of funds, in terms of the black political power that is leveraged in the name of a historic legacy of equity. So that's what I think off the top of my head about what's going on.
All right, we're going to just take a quick break and get ready for questions and answers. Give it up for Lacy. She did a wonderful job. And, of course, Dr. Dyson, who doesn't hold back on anything. All right, if you have a question, stand up. Questions, not auditioning for the speaker series. Come on up to the mic up here. This is my Sigma brother. By the way, let's give it up for the Divine Nine. Anybody in Divine Nine, stand up. All you frats and there you go. All right, go right ahead.
Gang warfare.
All right. All right, good evening. Go ahead with your question. Give your name. My name is David Whitfield. You must tell me where Barry White is. Haven't seen him in 40 years. But my question, is,
Before you go on that, Barry went to Cass. And I've wondered for years where he's at. Is he still living?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I've tried to find him, but he was a genius.
I'm so sorry to hear he went to Cass. I mean, Northwestern. You technicians, you green and white ugly technicians. Wait a minute, hold on. Cass wouldn't even let me into school.
Yeah.
So I had to go to Cranbrook.
All right.
they wouldn't let me in either. I went to Chadsey.
Your
question is, Brother Dyson, I'm sure you can see the parallels between the disregard that the United States is showing for our Palestinian brothers. And we realize that the United States is in a marriage with Israel that cannot be broken. I'd like to hear your comments about that. Israel has a homeland. Could Black Americans have been thought of being worthy of a home state where we could be protected like the U.S. has protected the Israelites?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Well, you remember back in the day, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s especially, they were talking about breaking up, what, 9 southern states for Black folk. Remember that? You're right. They were talking about that. They were talking about, and even Malcolm was meeting with Mr. Rockwell of the American, unfortunately, Nazi Party, because right-wing bigots who were segregationists often had allies, interestingly enough, in Black separatists, right? So they're like, we both want to get away from each other. How can we do it? So they were talking about Black folk having a homeland in America with the like 8 southern states, 9 southern states. I'd have to look at which ones they were talking about now. If they were talking about Texas or something, you know, in a big old state, don't be giving us the smaller states and ain't got no resources. But without being facetious, the question is this: how could Black America exist within the United States of America in ways that would be productive and efficient, that would allow us to have an independent economy and a government? That would be a hard thing to pull off, because Negroes can't even get along on the same street in Detroit, much less in the same city, much less in the same state. We can't even do it look at Twitter. We killing each other on social media. Some people on the cancel culture, some people hate other people because of this, because you're gay, you're lesbian, you're transgender, you're bisexual, because you're a Democrat, Republican, right? So we have these vibrant differences that constitute a sufficiently, if you will, non-singular kind of population. The better way to put that, more eloquent, would to see we are not monochromatic. We are diverse and heterogeneous. We are not homogeneous. And that means that Blackness is not the only basis for forging solidarity among ourselves. Let's be real. Clarence Thomas is going to be Black his whole life. And you ain't getting down with Clarence Thomas. You don't believe what Clarence Thomas believe. You don't think like he think. You ain't going to the crib like he going to the crib and what he got facing him. You know, I ain't talking about his wife. Although what I'm saying about her, this woman was down with the January 6th looters, rioters, and the political figures who were foisting onto the American government such infamous chaos, and she was texting with them. And on top of it, he said he didn't want to be a recipient of white noblesse oblige, and you up here taking all their money, for giving a loan for $286,000 for your RV. I get back to my point. The point is that it would be difficult to imagine within American society Black folk carving out their own spaces and places when we fail to do so with the things we have at our disposal. I do believe places like Detroit, which are to me a headquarters for so much of Black America. What goes on in this city goes on beyond this city. What happens within Black communities here is reflected and echoed in black communities around the nation. So best for us to facilitate a solidarity and a unity in our own broken communities to leverage our collective aggregate resources to the benefit of black people where we are, and that would have a much more profound effect to me than having a false sense of unity in a nation that would implode based upon our radical differences.
All right, Dr. Dyson, let's see if we can play a little rapid fire with your responses, questions, and answers. Next question for the audience.
My question is, what power does music have, and specifically hip-hop, to affect meaningful social change?
See, he didn't cut me down. A lot. Okay, next. Look, let me say very briefly. Hip-hop at its best is incredible. It's uplifting. It's insightful. It's beautiful. At its worst, women travel to Italy and travel to Ireland, and people think they can pinch their behinds because they heard it in a rap song. So the point is, or saw it on a rap video, at its best, it is uplifting, it is transformative, it has created multiple multi-millionaires, multiple now billionaires, has created an infrastructure and is the most powerful and successful and interesting form of music in America today. It took over from country music as the most powerful and successful form of music 2 or 3 years ago. Yo kids, the music that you didn't dig is now heard around the world on its 50th anniversary. So I think at that level, it's extremely valuable and important.
All right, we got some time for a couple more questions.
Yes, Dr. Dyson, how can we get our youth to understand that their votes do count? Because a lot of times our youth believe that the election is already been voted for, and that their votes don't count.
Right.
So how do we engage our youth?
Yes, sir. That's a great point. Look, your votes do count. First of all, we got to tell them that. Secondly, I can understand why y'all got cynicism, because you think, oh, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to turn out. And it's a pretty poor expression of electoral vigor. But if it didn't make no difference, they wouldn't be trying so hard to stop you from voting. If it wasn't no big deal, they wouldn't be so invested in trying to keep you from doing it. And let me tell you what, when they have all of these gerrymanderings going on, when they got this redrawing of districts, which is why it's important for you to vote, because who determines that? State legislators, which are overwhelmingly Republican. Out of the 50 states, 38 of them are led by Republicans. And they are redrawing that map on the local level for who goes to Congress and who gets a chance to represent you. So that makes a huge difference. And then look around you and ask about your life. What about my life do I like and don't like? I don't like how I can't vote. That's about voting. I don't like about what they do with my student loans. That's about voting. I don't even like the quality of my air in my neighborhood. That's about voting. I don't like the electric cords and electrical wires in my community. And all the stuff you're interested in, concerned about, schools, quality, education, that is resolved ultimately by a vote. And you've got to tell young people that, as discouraging as it is, the alternative is far worse and far more destructive. Imagine Donald Trump gets back in office, pardons himself, and then goes on a rampage because he's been ennobled, or at least empowered, by a Supreme Court that is likely to support him and certain jurisdictions that will support him. Imagine the act of disregard for democracy that we will see. So please keep in mind, it's bigger than your situation right now. That's what I would tell young people. It's a great question you asked, sir.
All right, we got another audience question.
All right, that was a great question, and I'm following up on your answer by asking, are you going to endorse Hill Harper for senator?
I endorse, Hill Harper's my man. I endorse Hill Harper for sure. But, and we need more Hill Harpers. We need people who are out here trying to make a difference, who are running for office, who have a real chance to win, who have conscience, who have character, and who have consideration for the odds and to overtake those odds and still represent their particular viewpoints. But it ain't about who I'm endorsing individually. I'm endorsing people to stand up to tell the truth about America for where we are. People keep asking, when you going to run? I said, I'm running from office, not for office, because I want to keep telling the truth as best I see it, because that's my job.
Thank you very much. I'm not a groupie. I really believe in democracy.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, I wasn't suggesting you were. No, I appreciate that. All right, thank you.
All right, moving to the next audience question.
Good evening, sir. As you can tell, I'm from the Big NO and graduate with you. And this is not directed toward Pastor Sheffield at all. But how do we as a people get our pastors, our ministers to go back and preach like Martin Luther King and Malcolm, that we have to go out here and stand up as a people and unite as one and stop fighting against one another and progress and use the church as it was meant to be and not as a pastor's pocket?
Well, have you paid me? Okay. No, don't sleep on pay. Look, Martin Luther King Jr. was beefing with J.H. Jackson. Let's not romanticize what was going down, right? J.H. Jackson was a great preacher out of Chicago. He was the head of the National Baptist Convention. He ran on a platform to your brilliant question, and I'm so glad you raised that question. You know, what's up, Coach? What up? Better than them technicians at Cass. What's up? What's up? What's up? Huh? We got better colors. The red and the gray is better. But anyway, so, but here's the point. Martin Luther King Jr. was beefing with J.H. Jackson because J.H. Jackson ran on a platform that he would represent the interests somebody had tried to railroad, and he ran that thing for 30 some odd years. Every year by acclamation. It was anti-democratic, small d. It was destructive. It was dictatorial, right? He was a brilliant preacher. That's why he kept getting reelected. But even back then, that's why they started the Progressive National Baptist Convention with Gardner Taylor, William Augustus Jones, L. Venture Booth, and others. So I don't want to romanticize like, let's get back to that. We always been beefing on the slave plantation. I'm going to go tell Massa what you doing. Stop that, Denmark VC. Stop that, right? All of the revolutionary preachers were being sold out by some handkerchief-head Negroes on the plantation eating watermelon and spitting seeds. So the point is that there's a long trajectory of disaffiliation with each other for the advance of the white person. Stephen in Django is a real thing, right? So I'm saying all that to say, your point, however, is beautiful. But let's realize this minority. Martin Luther King Jr. was a minority. Most preachers wasn't preaching. When you go out here today, down in Alabama, right, talking about that, right? Economic inequality, the God I worship says, don't play with me. Well, they wasn't doing that. They were doing prosperity gospel like they're doing now. In the name of Jesus, go out here and claim what it is. Now, I ain't mad. Hoop if you got it. Do your thing. But you ain't saying nothing. You're not talking about economic inequality, social injustice. You're not talking about the fracturing of political lines that has allowed black people to be vulnerable. You're not speaking about Jesus is the light of the world and you can't even keep your lights on. Talking about Jesus is the water of the world and you can't pay your water bill. And if you are going to a church where a preacher is not talking about what happens every day, either with Cat Williams or with the cat whose name is Williams, okay, you see what I did there. But anyway, or Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis is not speaking about the mayor, is not speaking about the governor, is not talking about politics, is not speaking about social resources. That is a waste of your time. Now, the question is, in order to be a great preacher, you got to have a great congregation. And you got to have congregations who was for that. Oh, man, I went to church, he preaching that political stuff. He up here talking about, he ain't talking about Jesus. Jesus is talking about politics. Jesus had to go to Egypt in order not to be murdered because Herod put an edict out. That's already political. His birth has been politicized. So if you go into a church that doesn't pay attention to the maldistribution of resources, that doesn't pay attention to the way in which the bottom line is being manipulated, that doesn't pay attention to the mass media manipulations that have distorted the possibility of democracy, you are not doing yourself a favor. But so many people do not want to go to churches where those kinds of issues are addressed. So it's not just about the preacher, it's about the congregation, it's about our conception of what real and true religion is about. At the end of the day, for me, religion is about love and transformation. And if you can't do that, I'm an atheist to your God.
All right, we got a couple more audience questions.
Yes, sir. What is your position on black violence? Because I've stood over so many bodies so far, and I've watched their lives expired. What do you think on young black men killing each other for no reason?
Well, I ain't no damn fan of it. Right? I'm not no fan of black on black, right? I'm not no fan of white on white violence. I'm not no fan of Italian on Italian violence. People kill where they live, right? It is true. You're raising a very powerful point. 93% of black people who are murdered by black people. 86% of white people who are murdered by white people. What I don't hear is, oh my God, Jiminy Cricket, the white family is going to hell in a handbasket. We're just killing each other, Bob. The Bobs and the Joneses are murdering each other. What are we going to do, Jiminy Cricket? Right? So the question is, how it has been politicized is an issue. Your point is well taken. I despair of black people killing black people. But those are people who are killing people in their neighborhood. They ain't taking no bus out to the suburbs to kill nobody in Livonia. They're trying to kill somebody where they live, right? Or they are forced to do so. Or they have a fight with somebody in their neighborhood. So the question is, if we racialize an essentially geographical issue, that might be a problem, though that is not to deny that there is black self-hatred that operates in the mind unconsciously that says if your life doesn't matter to the world, it doesn't matter to me because my life doesn't matter to me and therefore your life doesn't matter to me either. So I don't deny that that's legitimate. But I would ask the question about the powers that be. People usually engage in such nefarious activities who have lesser access to structural goods that permit the acquisition of education or sufficient economic condition that they're not subject or vulnerable to trying to kill somebody. Now, you can be rich and kill people. We see that every day on television. Some billionaire range, he want to wipe out his wife and take the insurance policy, right? We see that. But for the most part, if you are stable in your own life, economically and socially, you're not vulnerable to that impulse to murder. So I would say that I'm against all sorts of murders that happen in neighborhoods where resources have been starved and people are left to their own devices. So-called black-on-black crime is really neighbor-to-neighbor violence and lateral and horizontal violence that I think needs to be addressed in a serious way. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
And our final audience question for tonight.
Well, I want to say thank you for the Reverend for bringing us together at this beautiful event. And thank y'all for all these beautiful questions. But I want to say something about Donald Trump. I'm not no Donald Trump fan, but when he let Kwame out, he did that before Obama did. And right. I just want to say, how did he do that? Why would he let...
Hey, if you tell me Kwame's voting for Trump, I get it. you know what I'm saying? I'm not mad at that. Lil Wayne, hey, you got me out, you know? Hey, that's your benefactor 101. I ain't mad at that, but here's the problem, sir. There are a whole bunch of Kwames who are locked up in terms of over-incarceration. Now, that's Democrat and Republican. Let's not lie, right? We know that under Bill Clinton, with the hypervigilance toward incarceration, it didn't start there, but it was jump-started there again. We know that Ronald Reagan, and before him, Richard Nixon, right? What did Tupac say? Ain't it funny? They got money for wars but can't feed the poor. And it's a war on black people. We know that the war on drugs is a war on us. We know this. So there's no question that, that the disparity in powder and crack cocaine has led to a concentrated effect that has been deleterious, that's been negative to black people, and put a lot of us in jail. Now, under Eric Holder, we began, as the Attorney General, we began to try to fight that. We've fought that ever since. The disparity has been reduced. It's not been completely equalized, but it's been reduced. But we know that in our own day and age, that these issues are bigger than one person symbolically being let out. Kwame Kilpatrick is a friend of mine, and I love him, and I'm glad that Donald Trump
let him up. And I wish Obama would have pardoned, Marcus Garvey. He had the power to. There's a lot of stuff Obama didn't do, should have done, could have done. And don't give me that fact, well, he was scared of the white folk and what they do. I'm talking about second term. When you could light the White House up red, black, and green. Have a party up there with Parliament Funkadelic. Never learn to swim. I know my mama don't like this, but you don't. All you old black people love Obama. He's my president. I love him. That Negro could have done a lot more with what he had, right? I voted for Obama twice and was a surrogate for him. So you ain't, and I wrote a 300 and some page book on him. You ain't looking at nobody who's a hater. I love Obama, but I was critical of him at certain times. Don't be Donald Trump-like. That's the problem with white folk. They can't see no problem with Donald Trump, and he's got all kind of messed up things. I ain't comparing Donald Trump to Barack Obama. Barack Obama was far better. Only problem with him with white folk, he wore a tan suit, and they went crazy, right? I wish Obama had come out the White House sometimes with a skull cap on, with a do-rag and a terry cloth robe, some Jordans on. Yeah, I'm living in public housing. Yeah, me and Michelle, M-Beezy, what's up, biz baby? You know what I'm saying? I wish he would have. And then he said, when I get out of office, I'm going to do stuff. He been making money. I ain't mad. He been making millions. I ain't mad. But where's your social conscience too, bruh? Obama did some stuff he went off on those graduates at Morehouse. When he gave the graduation speech, you would have thought he was at a damn detention center. Nobody's going to give you anything. Ain't nobody asking you for nothing. James Brown said, I don't want nobody giving me nothing. Open up the door. I'll get it myself. So, but then when he went to Barnard, to the white women, he didn't say, because at Morehouse he says, stop making race an excuse. And then he went to Barnard and said, I identify with you because you're victims of misogyny and sexism. Now, wait a minute now. How you going to identify with them as victims of misogyny and sexism and dogging Negroes who are still victims of the persistent inequality? And let me tell you something else. Michelle Obama, whom I love, but if you read her first book, she shat upon Jeremiah Wright in a way that was unprincipled, right? She was saying, can you believe and imagine he was acting in a certain way? She compared Jeremiah Wright's response to Obama's mama. That's right, cut the lights off and listen to me. She compared Jeremiah Wright's response to Obama's racist relative's response. How you gonna draw a parallel between a black man coming from a tradition of white supremacy that has undermined us to white people who have a sense of privilege and are not conscious of it? So we thought that Obama, that Michelle Obama would make him blacker. And yet at the same time, we see the consequences of the failure to grapple with these issues. I love them. They still my people. I wish he was president now, but that don't mean we can't be critical of what he did. So at the end of the day, Donald Trump letting one Negro, even though he's my Negro, off, ain't no justification for talking about Mexicans as rapists, for being an anti-good people, anti-democratic, small d, a fascist, a third-rate cowboy, as Charles Adams talked about Ronald Reagan. I called him, he is an obsequious, defiant bigot who refuses to acknowledge the humanity of people. That's why I can't get down with it.
Like this video? Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an episode of Ty and Lay's Take Today. Also, be sure to follow us on all social media at Ty and Lay's Take.